Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Unashamedly Human podcast. My name is Jackie Ford, and today I have with me a gorgeous guest. Her name is Christine Mander. Christine is an Alexander technique teacher, and I met Christine a number of years ago when she came on one of my Unashamedly Human retreats, and we just had a blast with four other women exploring what it meant to let go, because the season was autumn, if I remember correctly. And since then, Christine and I have kept in touch. She's been doing various courses with other people to help her understand her human nature, which helps her understand other people's human nature. That's as technical as I feel like getting today, Christine, honestly.
That's a good way of putting it, I think.
Yeah, bless. So, Christine, welcome to the Unashamedly Human podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's very nice.
Oh, it's a delight. And, before the first date we'd organised to the podcast, Christine said, "What are we going to talk about?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm not even going to answer that email." I hate pre-scripted things. It's kind of like having a conversation with a friend, and unless you're going through your head about an argument and what you think you want to say and how you think they're going to respond. I just love the fluidity of conversation. I love the fluidity of mind, not knowing what we're going to say and how we're going to say it and what it's going to sound like. But as long as we're both coming from a gorgeous space of love, I have no problem with what transpires. And just as we were talking at the beginning, Christine brought up a couple of wee things, and I thought, well, if they come into the conversation, that'll be fun. So did you have a lovely, we're just going to chew the fat today, essentially chew the fat, which really means just hang out and see what comes forth. So did you have a nice Easter weekend, Christine?
I did. I had a lovely weekend. I had some friends over and we had a film evening on Friday night, which was
lovely. And was there a particular film that you watched?
we actually watched two. We watched Shadowlands and I can't remember the name of the other one. It's the David Nichols, I think, film about the couple that meet at university. They meet in Edinburgh, actually.
Oh, right.
University, and then they keep meeting each other throughout their lives. So yeah, they were both great. Yeah.
Oh, it's lovely when you can just get lost in a film, isn't it? One of my daughters was down who's particularly good. Obviously, we're moving house and, we're downsizing, so we're streamlining everything that we have. And Nikki's particularly good at going into a wardrobe and going, no, Mum, you're not keeping that. Those jeans are from the 70s, Mum. Who wears low-rise jeans these days? And she was just brilliant at doing all of this and helping us reduce and recycle, because it's just gone off to the charity shops. But she chose a film for us that I was surprised and delighted with, a very gentle, kind of honest, kind film, even though the topic was kind of harsh, and it's called Belfast.
Yes, I've not seen that, but my friends had, and they really enjoyed it.
Oh, Kenneth Branagh, I think, directed it, perhaps even wrote it, I don't know, but it was surprising, and I really loved it. Really, really nice. So as I say, it's lovely when you get a movie like that you just settle into, that doesn't jar the senses,
yes.
too much. And I know, Christine, throughout your life, there have been periods of time when life felt quite tight, quite complicated. And I know that you've been on a bit of a journey in life. And I'm keeping this really, really vague and ambiguous, because I just want to see what comes up for you about what you feel you would want to talk about in terms of how you see that now, what you know for sure.
Okay. I think if I'm looking at the whole trajectory of my life, it's a sort of I talked about it sometimes as being like two lines, and there's a sort of spiritual line that is always there and carries on. And then there's a lifeline, and sometimes they're together and sometimes they're miles apart. And you can, I had an experience when I was 20, that very, spiritual experience, and the lines were very close for quite a while. but then you get into life, don't you, and you stop working, and you get distracted by things, and they grew further and further apart, and I'd sort of forget about that other part of me until, you know, something would happen or someone would come along who would remind me. And I think my biggest point of them coming back together again was when I lost my husband, which is maybe what you're referring to. And that sort of, in a weird sort of way, got rid of all the other stuff. And so that spiritual line, in a lot of ways, was most of what was left.
What do you mean it got rid of all the other stuff? Was that a conscious thing or an unconscious thing? And what was the stuff?
I suppose when I say that, I mean things that took me away from that side of my life. So I'm no longer working, you know, in sort of paid work, and so there's less distraction from that, and most of the things that I'm doing, I'm choosing to do. So there's a big difference between the things that you have to do to the things that you choose to do. Maybe that's a better way of describing it. Yeah, I'm consciously choosing what I want to do, which is a very fortunate position to be in.
Absolutely, and a very beautiful space to be in, to be so aware of what you want to do, but especially what you don't want to do, because I think there's been huge periods in my life where I've been doing things but I really didn't want to do them, but I needed to do them to earn money. Sounds terrible, but I didn't mean it that way, you know.
It is, and yeah, I'm not saying that there aren't things that I'm doing that I'm, there's not everything there.
Yeah.
But on the whole, let's say it's more that than not, really.
And these spiritual lines and the lifelines come together, Christine, when your husband was unwell. And I remember you speaking about that quite deeply when you were on the retreat. And if that's something you could share, that would be beautiful.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, my husband had been ill, but we didn't know what it was for a little while. And he was diagnosed with lung cancer in October of 2017. And when that happened, when people knew how ill he was, our friends just sort of turned up. And we not long moved house into a bigger house, and so people stayed, and when you're in a space where someone's dying, the conversations are different. They're deeper, and we were talking about all sorts of things, talking a lot about the principles actually with people, because I'd not long been into prison with Beyond Recovery and had a most amazing day, and that's somehow that came up when I was telling people about that, and it was seemed to me to be a time of transformation for a lot of people. My husband wasn't, the illness had affected his brain, so he wasn't really, he was there and he could function, but he wasn't really there. It was like some part of him had gone. So that was a challenge. So, I was sitting with him a lot. And there was a lot of, I think the things that I've been learning or experiencing with the principles and with Alexander and so the things helped me with that, because I remember one time when I was trying to get Steve to eat, and he would or take his medicine up, and he just wouldn't do it. He was like, and was sort of, I could feel that I'd been pressurizing him, and he did actually say to me, "You're always angry with me," and I was like, I felt so awkward, but then I suddenly thought, oh, I don't need to get into those battles with him. If he wants to do that, that's fine. If he doesn't, and I'd go away and I wouldn't engage, and I'd come back half an hour later and he'd forgotten he didn't want to do whatever it was he hadn't wanted to do, and it would be from I suppose I'd come from a different place as well. You know? So there were things like that, you know, that when you get down to the nitty gritty of really life and practice, you know, having to, let's say, practice those things, but you know, those things coming up in life and meeting them. But it was also, I felt, a time of transformation for other people, friends and families. So Steve's brother was here a lot. He was great, and his family, and my sister-in-law and nephew, and he changed his career completely after that. He's now a counsellor, coach. He did the clarity training with me, and so he's, you know, his life has changed. And I have another friend who was here a lot, who's now a funeral celebrant. So lots of things, lots of gifts came out of that time. I mean, it was horrible and it was sad, but there were lots of gifts for lots of people, I think. That came. And it's a weird story that do you know the film The Big Chill? I can't remember.
Yes.
I knew Steve at university. We went a couple at university, but knew him there, and a lot of the friends that came were also from university. And we watched The Big Chill while we were students. And at the end, we were all doing that thing that you do where you say, right, which character would you be? You know, would you be in 10 years' time or whatever? And it was actually filmed with Kevin Costner, who didn't appear in it because he was the person. It was all about someone who dies, a group of college friends, and one of them dies about 10 years after they've left college. And Kevin Costner was the person who died. And actually, I think he ended up on the cutting room floor. I don't think he actually made it into the film. And so we were all saying, who would you be? And Steve said Kevin Costner. And it was strange when I remembered that when we were in this group, because it was so like the film. We were all this group of people getting together again, and around, you know, his going. So it was it was a bit did he know?
You'll never know. You never know. I love, and thank you for sharing that. That's Christine, because I know it's still, you know, that it brings emotion out, and thank you for sharing that. There's something about someone being terminally ill and dying that is this natural space for us all to transform if we surrender to it. And I think a lot of people fight against it. They rage against it because they see it as unfair, or they see that it shouldn't be happening to them, or, you know, which I completely understand why people get in that space. I always remember my father, you know, having been a nurse, you know, I've been at people's bedsides when they pass. I've been at road traffic accidents when people have died. I've delivered babies that had died in utero, and, you know, I've been at the bedside of my mum, my dad, and my grandmother when they all passed. And there's something about that is so, I always consider it that it's an honour. I've always seen it that way, that it's an honour to be with someone as they take that last breath, as they move from one world to the next. And there's a grace and a gentleness to it. Often there isn't, but you know, often there is. And I always remember my father when he was given his diagnosis, you know, and he was in the ward. He'd had surgery, and they kind of opened him up and closed him back up again because they realised there was nothing they could do. And we went to see him that night, and he was in a 4-bedded ward, and these 3 other men were younger than him, not by much. And I always remember my father saying, I've got bowel cancer. It's, the last stage. It's okay. I've lived my life. And he was 65. And the humility by which he delivered that message was such a learning point for all of us, that he wasn't afraid. He wasn't afraid of death. He wasn't afraid of the future, because he was so grounded in the moment. And my dad's, sort of religious background was he was a Baptist. And I often wonder if, I think he was well lapsed, but a very good man, morally, he was just, an amazing man. But you do wonder when mind just kicks in, that gorgeous intelligence behind life, essence, love just kicks in and guides you in that moment. So seeing my dad deliver that message to all of us, although I couldn't understand at the time, why is he saying that? He's a young man. He knew he was going to be okay. He knew that there was no point fighting or raging against something that was inevitable. So he just didn't. And I'm sure if he had felt that there was something to rage against, which he'd done with other illnesses in the past, he had done that. Now I always remember him, probably about 3 or 4 days before he passed. He was in the hospital with my youngest daughter was there, Lauren. She was 4 at the time, and they were playing rock, paper, scissors. And she was his best pal. They were really, really great wee pals. They were playing rock, paper, scissors. And as they did rock, paper, scissors, my dad put a rock out, and Lauren put her thumb up like this. And my dad said, "What's that?" She says, "It's the baby. You can't hurt the baby." My dad just burst out laughing, and to see joy in that situation was beautiful. And I know in amongst your husband's passing, there would have been moments of joy where you remember what's important.
Yeah, it's interesting, because I think like your father, Steve, sort of knew that he didn't want to fight against it. And I gathered together a few of my friends who I knew meditated to do some meditations for him. And I hadn't told him about this until sort of a little bit later on. And I said, I've got some people who were I can't remember, meditating for you or whatever. And he said, "Well, you can tell him to stop." And he went into a really still place, and he could just sit and look out of the window, or just sit. And I was with him once, sitting on the sofa looking out the window, and I said, how can I help you? What can I do to help you? And he just looked at me and said, "Just be." That was so beautiful. It was really, because that's what he was doing.
That's so true, isn't it? And that's something we forget in life, because we always think there's something to do. One of my friends passed away about 3 years ago. She was only in her 40s, in her early 40s. She had breast cancer, and it was too far gone. They couldn't do anything about it. And I always remember talking with her, and I said to her, "Would you like to do something with me, like create something or do something?" And she says, "No, I'd love to do that, Jackie." She says, but other people have been asking me to do things, but I just don't have time for that. And that phrase is a phrase that we all banter around. I don't have time. But when you're faced with death, time all of a sudden becomes so much, there's so much more relevance to it. And I actually find myself in that space now, Christine, that when my granddaughter arrived, just about 2 years ago, that mortality thing popped up for me. You know, I wasn't looking for it. It just popped up. It was like, oh my God, because you're bumped up a generation, you know. It's like, how did that happen?
Yes, yeah.
And I remember that, having all sorts of strange feelings about my own mortality. And I mean, they were so visible. And, you know, some of them I'm like, oh, for goodness sake. And others really got to me, you know. And it was amazing to be conscious enough to see that. And I was talking to my daughter about it the other day, and she said, oh, I got that same thing when her daughter was born. And I thought, wow. And one of my daughters the other day there, she says, Mum, can I take this bag for life? You know, she wanted to put stuff in it. I said, honey, you can take that bag for life. I said, because that bag for life's got more life in it left than I probably have. And she was like, don't you dare say things like that, Mum. And I find myself on, you know, my courses and things saying you have lifetime access to these materials. Well, my lifetime. Not your lifetime, my lifetime. Or, you know, because, you know, when I pop my clogs, who's going to pay the subscription? And so to have that awareness that it's not that time's running out, it's just time's taking on a different meaning.
Yes, I think that is true. Yeah, and I think one of the things just came to me the other day, actually, when I was talking to someone else, is that it's almost like things swap round. So obviously when you're younger, life is everything.
Yeah.
There is no other. And then the nearer you get to the other end, there's more of a, well, you know, maybe this is just this is a visit. You know? And this isn't everything, you know. This is a visit.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. That life is a visit, isn't it? It absolutely is, Christine. I think that's just adorable that we come here to live and to learn and to evolve and grow. Yet it's the very thing that so many people rage against because they like things to stay the same. So they don't grow and they don't learn.
Yes, we want to keep everything so we can predict and control.
Yeah, that's the brain, though, isn't it? The brain likes to make meaning of things and you know, make things all equal and organized. Yeah, my youngest daughter is she's 24 and a half. I don't know when we stop the half, but I think because she's the baby, the half continues throughout her whole life. And she has a degree, an honours degree in creative writing. And she has a master's degree in creative writing. And she's waiting to see, she's applied to do a PhD. It's a really good project that she'd love to do. And she's got support from the university to do that. And but she's in this kind of limbo land at the moment. You know, she's a creative. She knows herself that if she was to work in an office, she'd probably end up in prison. She's a free spirit. She, you know, she likes things to change and all of this kind of thing. No, I think I'm referring to myself rather than her. But it's lovely to see her navigate the unknown, recognizing that she'll end up doing what she's meant to do rather than trying to force herself into a category. Financially, it's very frustrating for her parents. but she has a job at the moment and she's okay just now. But it's that sort of wanting to know, wanting to predict, wanting to fix, wanting to sort. And she just doesn't have that. She's content being in life.
What a lovely gift.
Absolutely, absolutely. Just to be. You mentioned that, you know, to be and to be guided. But a lot of people either don't know how to do that, or they're too scared to do that because they're frightened they're wasting time. When in fact, time just gives us this opportunity to play.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I suppose when you're younger, there can be the pressure to fit in all of these things. You know, I have to get a good relationship. I have to have children. I have to do, you know, those things. And it's,
yeah. Our eldest daughter Megan had a beautiful big white wedding, gorgeous white wedding. It was one of the best weddings I've ever been at. And it wasn't just me saying that, it was a really good wedding. And I remember, you know, we're trying to find Megan found her wedding dress and trying to find the bridesmaid dresses, and her two sisters were trying to find bridesmaid dresses. And I remember them sidling up to me and saying, "Enjoy this, Mum. This is the only time you're going to get to experience this." Because the other two will run away and do something, or, you know, it'll be very small. Very small. But Megan's always wanted the big wedding and the house and the family before she's 30. But my other two daughters don't have that mindset. You know, they're more in the moment and not trying to control things and fix things. And everybody's different. And I love that being able to move forward in life with what you know is true for you at that moment is beautiful. You know, so your husband's transition was a great opportunity for you to evolve and grow. I know you'd probably still rather he was here to be with you, because I know I'd still rather my dad was here, you know, just because he was such a fun man. What do you think were the key things that you learned about yourself, Christine, during that period of your life?
I think I suppose I learned that I can cope with more things than I thought I could. And I mean, the way that we'd set up our life, I was working and Steve was a house husband, so he did everything, you know, all the practical things around the house, including cooking and everything. So I hadn't really done a lot of things. So there's a really weird sort of thing that I was incredibly disorganized. You know, considering the sort of jobs I did, I was really terribly disorganized, and I would always leave things till the last minute, and you know, and it's almost as if and Steve was the exact opposite of that. He was very sometimes he would leave things till the last minute, but he was very organized. And it's almost like there's something of his spirit that's taking me over. Ooh. Really weird, because I do things before the last minute. I did all the probate I did myself. I didn't have a solicitor. I now cook and I love it. You know, he loved it too. It was his creative thing, was cooking. So now I'm not as creative as he was, but I can really get what he loved about it. And so it's like I'm almost like I'm a different person in some ways. And you know, just having to sort stuff out for the house, and all sorts of things. Yeah, so that's it is quite weird, but it is like he's there, sort of. Yeah.
I love that giggle behind that. It's like, oh, if you could see me now.
Well, he's probably saying, oh, for goodness sake, why couldn't you have been like that before? Why did you have to wait until I...
Yeah. But I mean, let's get real here. You're probably saying that to yourself as well.
Oh, yeah. No, I am. Yes, life is so much more straightforward. But yeah, so that's been interesting. That's a learning thing, and I think it was like I think you said before you started recording about following the nudges, or I don't always do that, but I'm getting back to being a bit better at that. I think I probably have been better at that,
right?
Actually, but I usually find that when something comes up for me 3 times, I think, okay.
So it's conditional, Christine.
Right. But no, quite often, that there'll be something that appears in my in my consciousness, and then another time, and another time, and on the third one,
Yeah, that's really curious, because a lot of people say that, they've got to see it in 3s, and then they go, yeah, that's it, I have to do something about it. It's a synchronicity thing. Yeah, I think I learned the hard way that when I was younger, I was very good at it. And then in my 20s, I kept talking myself out of my own intuition, because I was sort of giving my power away. I thought other people knew better. And then after having my children, it just sort of came back. And then, now that I'm in this crone stage of my life, she laughs wickedly. It's just stronger than ever, and I think there's a bloody mindedness about it too. It's kind of like, no, I'm doing that. That's it. That's what I'm meant to do. I remember there was a family gathering about 6 months ago, and I just said, no, I'm not going. I don't want to go. It wasn't my family; it was my husband's family, and I'm just like, no, I just don't want to go. I just want to rest. And so they all went away and had a jolly good time, and I had a jolly good time by myself. And I think that was a very strong kind of nudge for me because of the pandemic, sort of being with Jerry 24/7 all the time. And this was the first opportunity for us not to be together. And I needed it, love him to bits, but I just needed that space. But yeah, I think there's a point, isn't there, Christine, where you get so tired of when you don't follow the nudges. And it just comes back to bite you in the bum. It's just like, why didn't I do that?
Yeah. I think, I can't remember if we talked about this before, but I just after Christmas, I got into really the sort of feeling, and I was listening. Oh, it was actually, yes, it was on your thing. It was
the old in with the new program in January.
Yes, yeah. And it was Linda Pettit saying, that we get into those blind moments when we're not following our intuition.
Boom.
And it was just like, yeah, okay, that's exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's so true, isn't it? It's. I believe we get into that space when we're not following our intuition, but also not being true to ourselves. When you look at everything that makes us human, all the important components, our spirituality, emotional connection, diet and exercise, relationships, all of these things, that when one is out of kilter, it has an impact on us. But particularly when you're meant to be doing something and you're not doing it.
It's sort of, it's almost like it eats away at you, isn't it?
Yeah. Do you want to share what it was you were meant to be doing that you weren't doing?
I think I was, I don't think there was a specific thing, but I was very much cutting myself off from people. So I wasn't, I wasn't getting in touch with people, and so I think it was partly that. I can't remember. There might have been. Is there something else? I think that was the main thing. And lots of little bits where I could have been, you know, sort of doing more, talking more maybe, and doing more things like this. And
I don't think there's anybody listening who hasn't experienced that, you know, that there's something they're meant to be doing and they're not doing it for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And it does eat away at us, which is it's not a nice space to be in, is it? To sort of to feel these nudges, these moments where you know you're meant to be doing something and you're not doing it.
It's interesting with what we were talking about before, the just being, and and there is it's almost like there's a time for just being, and then there's a time for acting on the nudges, isn't it? And it's knowing which bit you're in that's important.
Tell me more about that.
I think because you could see those two as contradictory. You could see of the just being, but it's almost like I don't know, I'm thinking this through, so it could be it's almost like the just being is the stage where you make yourself open enough to hear the nudges. And then if you've been in that just be stage and you hear the nudges and you ignore them, then that takes you down a different path somehow.
I love that. I can see truth in that. I can absolutely see truth in that, Christine, that there are moments where it's settling, isn't it? That's what you're pointing to, is that sort of settling back down again from the busy mind and everything else. And then you can hear yourself more clearly. But having said that, there are also moments where the mind's going like this, but you can still hear the nudges and intuition coming through too. But no, I get that. But then I often wonder about that from this perspective of, you know, the little voices in your head, you know, all the wee voices. You know, the one that says that we've named, oh, that's our intuition. Oh, and that's ego. And for me, there's another wee voice in there. There's the one that's kind of like my best friend that says, no, Jackie, you don't need to do that. You can start tomorrow. You don't need to do that today. Okay, love, it's all good. You know, and sort of I'm very hyper aware now of, I know intuition because it comes with a full stop at the end of the sentence. It's kind of, it's a done deal. That's what I have to do. And there's no, I could do this, I could do that, I could do this. It's like, that's what I have to do. And then there is ego, which gives me options. Well, you could do this, Jackie, or you could do that, you know, and feel how things are. And then there's this little middle voice. It's like, well, oh, honey, you know, so I'm always listening. It's like, where's that coming from? Is that me sabotaging myself? Is ego developed a wee best pal that's going to try to get round? It's a very clever thing, you know. But I love the being settling. It's such a beautiful space.
Yeah. No, it just reminded me of I had a call from a friend, and I was just in the middle of making my tea, so I said, "Oh, I'm really sorry, I'm making my tea. I'll call you back again, sort of, you know, like tomorrow." And as I was carrying on making my tea, I thought, no, you really have to phone her now. I phoned her back, and I did, and she was she really needed someone to talk to. She was in quite a bad space, and or someone to listen to her. But that was a real, you know, really.
Yeah. But you knew, didn't you? You didn't even second guess it. You didn't choose to question it. It was just
not on that occasion anyway.
You knew what you were meant to do. It's interesting because, you know, like, I help my daughter out with the baby a couple of days a week, and I just always know when she needs me to be there a wee bit more or to stay a bit longer, or what. You just, it's not even a question. She's, you know, and she gets it. She's like, I know that you know, Mum. I'm like, yeah, I know. And it's not, I don't need you to ask me. I don't need, you know, none of that. It's just meant to be. And living your life in that space of, it's meant to be. but not from a space of spiritually bypassing anything. It's if there's something to be dealt with, if there's feelings to be felt, if there's thoughts to be questioned, I will do that. But that deep, deep knowing about you needing to phone your friend, us moving house, you know, Megan being with Megan, etc. There's such a deep, deep knowing. You can't do anything else. It comes with this gorgeous, inspired action, doesn't it? This is the logical next step.
Yes, it's the ones that don't come with that. There's the little, oh yeah. Oh.
Yeah, maybe I could do this. Do you get those a lot?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, Christine, it's really funny because I'm in a space at the moment where it's just kind of like, I just don't even think I think. I'm, you know, I'm like, God, I'm so boring. There's just not a lot going on up here at the moment. I think most of my life there's not been a lot going on up there. You know, and it's being in that space, living life is really, really nice. But it isn't always like that, is it? Can you talk to that?
Yeah, I think I mentioned earlier on that I had an experience when I was at college, actually, where it was, that's the best way to explain it, really, but I just woke up one morning feeling complete joy. And I had there were just lots of things around it, like I would be with people, you know, when you're that sort of age, there's some people you like being with and some people you don't. But I didn't care who I was with. I was fascinated by everyone. And I think now, looking back on it, I suspect there was less thinking going on. I wouldn't have necessarily realized that at the time. Things like, you know, I got to places on time that logically I really shouldn't have got to. And I could, there were people that I could tell what they were thinking, and you know, there was a whole sort of thing. But it lasted much longer than I thought. Every morning I'd wake up thinking, oh, it'll be gone today, and it went on for, you know, quite a few weeks and things. But I'm guessing that when it was my final year and I was doing my finals, and I think when I had to go into that mode of finals, that it sort of gradually dissipated. So, you know, I think I sort of thought of it afterwards as almost being like a gift at the time to say, this is how it can be. You know, but it isn't, but this is what you're sort of, you know, you're going to get back to, or but yes, I've had other times when it's been similar, but not, you know, not, it's never as sort of intense. I don't think it's the first time you have that sort of experience, is it?
That to me is a beautiful example of dipping in and out of mind, and the fact that you even noticed it is huge. You know, because a lot of people, they don't know that's what's happening. They just know that their life feels good, there's no roadblocks, this feels wonderful. And
it felt other than that, you know, it did feel very other than life. So I don't know. I definitely noticed it.
and now all of a sudden I have the title for the podcast. It's Dipping In and Out of Life. You know, for many reasons, and many of the things that we've discussed today. So are you planning on doing more of the prison work with Jacqueline? I know you did some work during the pandemic with her. This is Jacqueline of Beyond Recovery, who does a lot of work in prisons.
Yes, I was doing some letter writing, and I've written another piece for her, but I'm not doing that so much at the moment, but I may well go, but I still go to a lot of the things that
it's lovely.
They're doing, yes.
Yeah,
I've got one tonight actually, which is
nice. Yeah, the work she does is just, it's amazing, isn't it? She's a beautiful soul. It's really, really lovely.
Yeah, it's great.
Christine, it's been an absolute joy to be able to sort of have this time with you and record the podcast and sort of catch up and chew the fat, as we said at the beginning. Just chew the fat and see what comes up. Do you have any top of mind thoughts that you would like to share with the people that are listening?
Wow, that's a I think the things that I learned from, the experience of losing my husband particularly, one of the big ones was not to stop yourself feeling. And I would, if I was feeling sad, or lots of those, Steve should be here feelings, and why isn't he? That I wouldn't try and stop them. I'd just go with them, and going with them allowed them to flow through a bit quicker, I think, than otherwise.
Sorry, keep going, Christine.
Yeah, no, that was it really. I think that yes, I think suppressing those and trying to carry on around them, and spending a bit of time on my own when I didn't feel I had to be responsible for other people who might want to make me feel better, if that makes sense.
No, I know what you're saying. There's a vulnerability in there sometimes that we've been so used to coping with life that we don't want other people to feel that we're feeling a certain way, and for them to feel responsible for us. And
I think it's partly that, and also partly that you want to feel it without going to the trying to feel better too soon. And I think people around you get frightened of the feeling it and want to get you there to the next stage sooner sometimes. And I think that's so I think that's why being on your own sometimes is useful, because you don't.
I love that. I do, because innocently people want you to feel better, and they don't.
It's lovely that they do.
And they don't realise that the process of healing means that we need to let everything pass through us one way or another. Thank you, Christine. You've been an absolute joy. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and thank you for being a guest on the Unashamedly Human podcast.
Lovely to chat to you. Thank you.
Awesome. So for anybody listening, if you've enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your friends, like it on any of the platforms that it's on, and hopefully we'll see you on the next episode. Okay, take care everybody. Bye.